Harlan Stiles paced his dormitory room while his cellmate met with a therapist. 3 months in this hole and still no word from Brenda. The prison scene unwound like a bad dream, one where he never woke up. And when they brought him here, he thought he could manage a month or two on a misdemeanor, for Brenda's sake. But not for her, not for anyone. Prison pummeled in a man's spirit to a frothing blob. Promises, that's all his lawyers gave him. Promises that stung as much as his foster mother's belt while she spouted scripture with every lash. Promises as useful as meatless bones tossed to a starving dog. First, they said he'd get out on a technicality. Something about a mistake on the ME's autopsy report. A typo. Wrong time of death. Darnell Washington promised he'd figure out an alibi for the both of them at the corrected TOD. Whatever that overpriced excuse for a lawyer manufactured had to work soon so he and Brenda could go on with their childless lives. Too bad about the kid, but that brat should have known the difference between his Coke and sugar for her tea party. Brenda understood Harlan's rage when he found Kylie serving his stash to her stuffed animals. At least Brenda said she'd understood and promised to stand by her man. More promises. 3 years and 3 months of hot air, full of sound and fury that signified nothing. Brenda's words as rehearsed as a grade school poem. The guard rapped on his cell. Stiles, you got company. Follow me. Couldn't be Brenda. Not regular visitation hours. Though he hoped against hope, even if her visit meant listening to her nasally whining, he'd shut out her unpleasant rasp and leer at what he most enjoyed about her. He'd been crazy to tell her to stay away until this mess straightened out. 3 months without so much as a whiff of her white jasmine perfume, which he bought at $100 a pop. His face drooped as the officer opened the door to the private visitation room. Not Brenda, only Washington, who lifted his head toward the guard in a yank of authority. I'll need 10 minutes with my client. The guard stepped outside. Harlan blinked away his hatred for all things legal. Even this mound of flesh disguised as a friend. The proverbial wolf in sheep's clothing and Harlan's only hope. What's up? I didn't expect you until tomorrow. I had an inspiration, Harlan. The private eye we hired handed me our best out yet. I'm filing a motion for mistrial, maybe even a civil suit against the city. Don't mess with me, Darnell. Harlan put his hands on his head, squeezing until he winced from the pain. If you don't get me out of here, I swear I'll kill myself. What have you got? The ME angle isn't going to fly. Judge Normandy hasn't budged one iota, and the cops have punctured every alibi I've been able to come up with. I could go to appeals court, but I don't know if I can prove harmful error. Washington held up a folder. But this is a gem. How does prosecutorial prejudice sound? Prejudice? Is Knowles a racist? Not racism, Harlan. Gender. She's some kind of man-hater or something? It's a stretch, but eventually I could prove her psychologically unfit to try your case. Harlan cringed at the word eventually, a word that smacked of more stalls, more hearings, more thin promises. He swiped a trembling hand over his brow. Do whatever you gotta do, Darnell. Just get me out of here. Prosecutorial prejudice. Pretty words, whatever they signified, and the way they slipped off Washington's tongue jump-started Harlan's hopes. Like kindling, the phrase ignited new purpose. Samantha Knowles would regret the day she signed on for the case. She'd pay, one way or another, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. The more maddening thing, the thing that wrung him inside out, wasn't so much the thought of losing Brenda, as hard a pill to swallow as any. Only a matter of time before she found another golden goose, regardless if Harlan was in or out of prison. But for 3 years, he'd been Knowles' target, a scarecrow holding a wafer board shield while she slung her 1,000 arrows. Like Lot's wife, fire and brimstone turned his life to a living hell, all because of Knowles. She had to pay for killing his soul, suffer as he had suffered, a death for a death.